A question I get asked a lot, and also kind of a question in general that the community has, is what are all the official erratas for Marvel Champions? Now, you can actually find this in the back of the new, well, for us now, new 1.5 rulebook. They list them all out, and so if you want to read them yourself, it's like 3 pages long. It's not too long, but you can check them out. But I figured as a video, we'll also just go through each one and talk a little bit about it. Probably like 10 seconds per card, nothing too crazy. But yeah, we'll just kind of go through it and talk a little bit about each card. Again, you can just read this in the back of the book, but if you want to like actually watch a video based on it, here it is. So let's go check this out. So we're just going to kind of go through this list, right? Each side, kind of go through each card pretty quick. Some of them are really small stuff, nothing too crazy. So Superhuman Law Division is the first one from the core box. It's now on, this is the She-Hulk card. It says it should read alter ego action, exhaust superhuman law division, spend a mental resource, exhaust 2 threat from a scheme. So they got rid of the thwart label that's on here, which is actually really nice because now if you're confused, right, you don't have to worry about that. It's a removing threat action. It's no longer a thwarting action, which kind of changes a lot. Again, if you're confused, doesn't matter anymore. You can still remove threat. All right, the next one is MODOK. They added the periods to the card, right? This is the card. There should be periods. That's it. All right, Honorary Avenger. This is from the Captain American Hero Pack. Should replay only if your identity has the Avenger trait attached to a friendly character. Max 1 per character. Attached character gets the +1 hit point and gains the Avenger trait. So the big thing is the +1. They changed added the max 1 per character, right? Because essentially you could just like stack a bunch of these onto one character. But we all kind of inherently knew this. But yeah, so they just officially put the wording in. Only 1 per, max 1 per character for this card. Followed should read interrupt when an attached enemy is defeated or attached scheme is defeated, deal 4 damage to an enemy. They changed the response to an interrupt. This just kind of like changes a little bit of things on the timing scale of things. So for those that don't know, in the beginning of the rule book, there we go. This is page 5 of the rule book. Force interrupts, then boost. This is timing of things have priority over each other, and then the response is near the bottom. So it's kind of moving that up, really. So if there's any interactions where this whole card should have been ahead of time, it's really just kind of like affecting that, right? That's not the right section. That's basically what it is doing now for this card. All right, now we're on the Thor's Hero Pack. Lightning Strike should read hero action, spend X energy resources, deal X damage to the villain and each minion engaged with you. This damage ignores tough status cards if you have the aerial trait. They changed attack to damage. So on the original thing, it says right here, right, this attack ignores tough status, and now they're saying that it would say this damage. The reason being is because since the hero action, it's not an attack, and you don't have to worry about stuns, right? Because you're not attacking. So that's was just to clarify it, because a lot of people were like, well, now it says this attacks, does that make an attack? Which it really wouldn't anyway, but it just like it cleans it up a little bit. So anyway, if you're stunned, it doesn't matter. You could still do this card then. Loki should read Force Interrupt. When Loki would be defeated, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is a treachery, heal all damage from Loki instead. This was kind of nice because if you were technically doing it the wrong way, it's just an interrupt, which means you don't actually have to do it, right? So you would just defeat him and you didn't have to actually do this, but it should have been a force interrupt instead. Now with the Wrecking Crew Scenario Pack, I've been waiting for this. Card number 41 should read, when revealed, the villain activates, heals 3 hit points, give that villain a tough status. So originally it said the villain gains 3 hit points. It's healing, right? It's just more consistency things. Plus, that might have thrown some people off, but it's just to kind of keep consistency going. All right, so Iron Fist should read interrupt. When Iron Fist makes an attack, against an enemy, remove 1 mystic counter from him, stun that enemy, and deal 1 damage to it. Change response to attack. This is actually kind of important in a way, because a lot of people would do it that he would attack, like do the 2 damage of the attack, and then you would do the whole remove 1 mystic counter from him and stun the enemy and deal 1 damage and all that fun stuff. Really should be the other way, because you're interrupting the attack, right? So when Iron Fist attacks an enemy, you're interrupting this. Now you remove 1 mystic counter from him, stun that enemy and deal 1 damage to it, and then the attack damage happens, right? Before it was the other way around. So this may change some things for you, but it is nice because if they have tough now, it pings that tough with the 1 damage and stuns them if they're not stalwart or steady, and then you do the 2 damage. So it's just kind of a nice little thing they did for Iron Fist here. Warning, interrupt. When a hero would take any amount of damage, reduce that amount by 1, remove the defense trait. So we talk about defense a lot with this. So it used to have the defense trait. It doesn't have that anymore. So when a hero would take any amount of damage, reduce that amount by 1. This was great because you could easily trigger defense cards to become a defender, and we can get into defense stuff because it kind of gets convoluted and complicated. But I guess they thought warning was just too bonkers strong of a card, so they got rid of the one of the benefits of it, which was the defense trait on it. I don't know why they did this. It doesn't make sense. Like, just keep defense on it, but whatever. All right, so the next one is kind of a weird one, and I'm gonna be honest, this one still confuses me a little bit. Like, I get why they're doing it, but we'll get into this in a second. So Inner Demon should read, give to the Bruce Banner player, change form, flip your identity, and then if you are the Bruce Banner player, discard 2 cards from your hand, discard his obligation. If you are Hulk, exhaust your hero, discard his obligation. Remove the word then. So originally right here, right there, it had the word then, which seems innocuous, right? Like, why would you care? Well, then is kind of like a big deal in Marvel Champions, to the point that if the effect text of an ability includes the word then, the text preceding the word then must be fully true or resolved before the remainder of the effect described after the word then can be resolved, right? So if the pre-then text is the effect fully resolves, then the post text must also attempt to resolve. I think this was just to clean up the whole thing, because then can get kind of confusing with what it does and doesn't do. And I'm going to be honest, this is one of those things where, like, I inherently get it, but I don't, like, fully get it. I don't know if that makes sense. But I think it's really just to clean up with the word then. There's a lot of stuff. I think there's things later on they start doing with then and whatnot. So that was just them kind of cleaning up. Next up, we have the Rise of Red Skull expansion. Avengers Tower number 21 should have the Avenger trait. This may seem confusing to you because maybe from your Captain America deck, you've seen a card like this that does have the Avenger trait, so you don't fully understand what they're talking about. Well, if you actually go to Hall of Heroes and look at the actual printing of the card, it's just the location. They didn't put the trait on. So again, it's just to kind of even that out and whatnot. They just forgot a word. Marked for death, the Clint Barton player, or I'm sorry, when revealed, the Clint Barton player searches their hand, deck, discard pile for the play area for Mockingbird and places her face up beneath this card. When this scheme is defeated, return Mockingbird to its owner's hand. Change the word stage to scheme. So yeah, they just have the word stage in here. It's not a stage, they're schemes, right? The main scheme, side scheme, whatever. It's not a stage. Again, it's just to clean up wording. All right, next one is Hail Hydra. Should read, when revealed, each Hydra minion engaged with the hero attacks the hero. Each player who was not attacked this way searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a Hydra minion, puts into play, engage with them. Shuffle the encounter deck if it was searched. Change the shuffle ability to only occur if the encounter deck was searched, which is interesting. So in the Captain America one, has this wording, right? Shuffle the encounter deck if it was searched. This one just says shuffle the encounter deck. So same card, right? Just different color, but they slightly changed the wording. This is with Spider-Woman's Nemesis. So Spider-Woman came out later, I think. So it's kind of interesting that they changed the wording on that. But anyway, it's just you only shuffle the encounter deck if you search for the card, which we all kind of did inherently. So this is kind of a big one that a lot of people don't realize. Attack on Mount Athena, which is the Crossbones main scheme, 1A. So it shows all the Crossbones stuff, whatever. Experimental weapons, standard encounter set, 3 modular sets. So Hydra Assault, Weapon Master, and Legions of Hydra. They changed Hydra Patrol, which is what's actually on the card. Right? If you look on the card, it looks like this. It says Hydra Patrol. It shouldn't be Hydra Patrol. It should be Hydra Assault. They messed up on that. So that's just kind of an FYI on that. I think if you look in the campaign book, it actually lists it correctly, but the card is wrong. All right, so the next one is Galaxy's Most Wanted. This has to do with the campaign instructions. Bullet 5. Should read expert campaign only when setup ends. In player order, each player must choose 1 card from their hand and put it face up into the collection. Added when setup ends. So this is somewhere in here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Player order, each player must choose 1 card from their hand and put it face up in the collection. This is just specifying like when that should be. All right, next one is page 18, same Guardians Most Wanted rulebook. Should read optional, reveal Kree supremacy side scheme, and use the reverse side for expert mode and all that fun stuff. So this is where, what is it? Well, now it says it optional. They updated their rulebook. That's very sneaky. That's not what the original rulebook says. But yeah, so this is optional. The reason being is because these cards are stupidly hard for the campaign mode, and nobody could ever win against Ronin because it's just. I mean, look at this. What are we doing with that? What is this? What is this? Next one is Star-Lord Hero Pack Cosmo. Should read Interrupt. When Cosmo attacks or thwarts, name a card type, then discard the card from the top of the player deck or encounter deck. If that card is not named type, Cosmo does not take consequential damage. So they used to say a deck, right? So if you look at this, name a card type, then discard the top of a deck. So people are using this for the Invocation deck on, what's his face? Doctor Strange, to basically get this right all the time, and then plus it cycled your bad invocation cards that were in there, or the one bad one that you probably didn't want. So they just specified that to kind of like nerf Doctor Strange a little bit. All right, so next one is Mad Titan Shadow Expansion. Rulebook, page 10, 2 main schemes. Paragraph 1 should end with the sentence, when a minion schemes that threat is placed on the main scheme with the attachment focus defense attached to it. There's a little bit of questioning. They may have actually updated this. Maybe not. But there was a little bit of questioning about that, and like where do they scheme and whatever. So now we know. It's just to make it a little bit easier to kind of explain that. All right, next up we have Infinity Gauntlet, which changes a little bit of wording. I think this is more for clarity. I don't think it will change really much. But after attached villain activates against you, resolve the special ability of each Infinity Stone in play. Otherwise, put the top card of the Infinity Stone deck into play. So basically, it used to say after attached villain activates, resolve the special ability of each stone, blah, blah, blah. People, I guess, were a little confused with the word activates. I think they are trying to clean that stuff up. So basically, after he activates against you, so you know exactly kind of when it is. All right, the next one is Cosmo, which we already did, so we're going to skip over that because you already know that. We just talked about it. But War Machine Hero Pack, James Rhodes, should read action. Choose a War Machine card in your discard pile and shuffle your deck. Limit once per phase. It doesn't say that, so a lot of people were kind of spamming this over and over and over because they didn't say it. They forgot the wording, so that is now fixed. Next up, we have Aragorn. Should read, you get 4 hit points and gain the aerial trait. It used to say Valkyrie gets 4 hit points, so now it's Valkyrie and when you're on your alter ego, right? So it's your hero and your alter ego, because that could kind of be weird if like you flip down, like you're like, do you lower your hit points and whatnot? Like it's you as a whole, not just Valkyrie's hero side. Shield Maiden should have the defense trait, which is actually kind of nice because with defending that helps out a little bit. But when the enemy with Death Glow attacks, declare Valkyrie defender without exhausting, and she gets +2 for that attack. It would give her the defense trait. We will do a video sometime in the future why this actually matters with defense trait, because the defense trait is kind of important and lets you like key off other cards in protection. I don't think many people ran Valkyrie in protection though, but if you did, it'd be like a little bit better of a card now. Beguiled should have the condition trait and read when revealed, attached to one ally with the highest cost without Beguile. Attached ally engages its controller, otherwise the card gains surge. So it just doesn't have the wording up here. It should just have condition on it, and it doesn't. Next up from the Vision Hero Pack, Machine Man. Interrupt when Machine Man attacks or thwarts, spend up to 3 resources for any attack, or I'm sorry, any type, and Machine Man gets +1 thwart, +1 attack for this use for each resource spent this way. Originally, a lot of people were kind of confused by this because it just says that Machine Man gets +1 attack, +1 thwart for each resource spent this way. So some people are like, well, is it cumulative? Like, does it stack on top of each other? So if I spent 3 this round and he's a 4/4, and I spent another 3, is he like a 7/7 then? Like, right? This is like kind of whatever. Now, it's not. I think most people play this way, but the wording was just like a little confusing. All right, next one, Sinister Mode's Rulebook, page 17, the glider counter, paragraph 4 should end with the sentence, when a main scheme is complete, flip it to its environment side. Yeah, they didn't. Well, they put it in now. This sentence did not exist before. So like people are just like, okay, but like it was common sense. We all kind of knew it, but they just, again, clarifying things for clarity purposes. Then we have rulebook, page 22, reputation track, left column, paragraph 2. Should read, during the resolve mulligan steps of the game setup, each player may take 1 additional mulligan. Change step 13 to resolve mulligan step to align with the updated setup process. So I think they did this, but it's just because they changed how setup works now, and you can read all that. I think we've talked about that in other videos, but they just changed how it works, so it's just kind of clarifying that is all. Manipulate Mind should read, when revealed, attach to the ally you control with its lowest cost. With the lowest cost, attached ally engages its controller, otherwise this card gains surge. It did not have engage the controller, right? Attached to the ally with you control with the lowest cost. If you cannot, this card gains surge. like they had with Beguiled before that we talked about. Again, is that the allies should be engaged to you. They just didn't clarify that. Again, clarity purposes. Nova Hero Pack. Miss Marvel should read Hero Response. After you play an event, exhaust Miss Marvel and deal 1 damage to her. Return that event from your hand, or to your hand from your discard pile. It didn't say from your discard pile, so people were confused, like, well, if it's on the table, like, is there a weird like response timing that? Is there certain time, like, again, people are getting a little confused with timing and whatever, and they're just trying to tighten things up when they do stuff like this. So again, once you play the card, it automatically goes to the discard pile, and then the response can take effect, so then you can pull it from the discard pile, right? They're just tightening everything up. This next one was actually kind of a big change and like fundamentally changed the card, which kind of stinks. But Go for Champions should read Hero Action, remove Go from Champions from the game. Arrow, each champion character in play cannot take damage for the end of the round. It did not say that. This card was bonkers strong. It was an action, a 3-cost event, and you get max 1 per deck. You can only use it if you're a champion, and each champion character in play cannot take damage until the end of the round. You could spam this card over and over and over and over again, but now you have to discard this card completely. Here's another big one. This was a big one that kind of really, I think people started paying attention to the cost arrows and all this stuff around this time, which is the Mutant Genesis expansion. Steel Fist Hero Action, deal 5 damage, should read, deal 5 damage to an enemy. You may discard a tough status from your hero to stun and confuse the enemy. They replaced the cost arrow. Now, the reason this is important is because the cost arrow basically say that everything before the arrow must be done, right? That's what the actual ruling states. And then there was argument, well, if I can't deal 5 damage to an enemy, right, I can only deal 4 damage to an enemy. Can I use this card? And basically, because of the way cost arrows work, you couldn't. Then there was a bunch of argument about, well, it's a different sentence, so it's not really the same sentence before the arrow. And then they would look back at older cards and like, well, how would this affect older cards? They just changed the card so that it's 2, which makes a lot more sense. So even if you're only doing 4 damage to an enemy, you can still play this card now. It's just in the past, if you dealt 4 damage to an enemy, you couldn't play this card because you weren't able to do everything before. And then this also got into like deal and take and all of that stuff, and that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, they just basically change that. All right, Armor Up should read Alter Ego Interrupt. When the villain would activate, change to hero form. This was actually nice because people were confused exactly when the timing was of Armor Up. So it's an interrupt. When the villain activates, change to hero form. And I think, again, a lot of people confuse exactly when activates is. Like, activates is basically like the very beginning. So it's the very beginning of when they would do anything, right? So when they would activate, this kind of clarifies it so you know exactly when it is. You change your hero form. The word activates is really kind of misunderstood or not really like explained very well in this game, I think. So yeah, anyway, it specifies because people are like, well, does it still attack me? And then I change the hero form? Like, it was very confusing for people. But anyway, when the villain would activate, you change to your hero form. The next one is the one that actually stopped me paying attention to Hall of Heroes. This whole Logan thing was an absolute mess. It just was not well done and whatever. And just, it was great content, not gonna lie. Those videos were some of my most viewed videos about this, but whatever. So Logan Hero Pack, Logan should read setup, put Wolverine's Claws in play. Originally, it was set up, search your deck and discard pile for Wolverine's Claws, upgrade and put it into play. The reason that this was the way it was because they originally ruled, for some reason, that you could have your claws in your deck shuffled, and if like Ultron put them down face down as a drone, then you didn't have them. If you drew it into your hand, well, then you would just SOL and you couldn't do anything with it, right? You could never get your Wolverine claws into play, right? It was an absolute mess of a ruling, and it was just because they didn't like clarify how setup rules should be. They have now since then clarified the whole setup process, and they changed it. It's much better, but originally it was very, very confusing. It didn't make any sense, and they even stated in one of their Hall of Heroes rulings that, well, this is how their playtesters did it, so this is how you should do it. Right. And even though it was not the official rule and it didn't make sense to any of the rules, and it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. But anyway, they have since then fixed the setup. They've done a good job with it. But yeah, they had to change the wording of this because this wording doesn't make sense anymore because of the new setup rules. Berserker Barrage. Hero action. Deal 4 damage to an enemy. If this attack defeats an enemy, you may take 2 damage to repeat this ability. Once again, this was the whole everything before a cost arrow must be done. So again, deal and take. Do you have to deal all 4 damage to the enemy, right? And then in order to in order to repeat the ability, right? It was kind of confusing. It kind of was annoying. So anyway, they got rid of the arrow so that it's just now the word 2. So it's less confusing. Bonebreaker should read forced response. After Bonebreaker engages you, take 1 indirect damage for each Reaver minion engaged with you. Before it was interrupt, right? After Bonebreaker engages you, but you're interrupting after he engages you. It's very, very confusing. So most of you probably played it the right way, but they're just kind of fixing the wording on that. The search for Spiral, right? Hero action, take 2 damage, remove 3 threat from here. After the down here, hero action, take 2 damage, remove 3 threat from here. It should be a cost error. You have to take all 2 of the damage, right? You can't just take 1 damage or whatever. The way that this worked before is you kind of could get around it if you figured out ways to do that. But you have to actually be able to take the 2 damage to remove the 3 threat from here. So they're just making that what they initially, I mean, you can kind of tell us what they initially wanted you to do. Is just, again, fixing that up a little bit so it's easier to understand. Last one is Fetch Quest. When defeated in player order, each player may search their deck for a card and play that card, ignoring its resource cost. Shuffle. Replaced for free with ignoring its resource cost. And each player may search their deck and play that card for free. They don't really use the word free in anything, and that would probably open up a whole can of worms. It's better to just, again, be consistent. You ignore resource costs. You don't put cards in for free. We say we're putting it in for free, but really the game in the proper wording is you're ignoring its resource cost. That's it. That's all the erratas. It's actually like only a handful that really kind of matter, especially over kind of the years. A lot of them are just small wording stuff, and there isn't too many drastic changes, I think. But it is interesting because a lot of people don't know that these things exist. So hopefully this video is somewhat useful, educational, whatever for you. If it was, let me know. And like I said, make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. And let me know down in the comments what you knew, what you didn't know, what you think they should change, or maybe they shouldn't have changed. I don't know. Kind of interested in hearing that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video. See you all next time.